Okay, so my story is a little different today because I'm not actually the fish in my fish out of water story, and I'm not even the water. I'm kind of like the land. The fish in this story was actually a med student who was giving me a pap smear. But it's funny, so bear with me. This starts a few years ago when my doctor called me and said that my pap test had come back with a slightly abnormal result. It was like not a big deal. It wasn't, nothing was really wrong, but she was sending me for some follow-up tests at this hospital clinic where I would have to go and get a pap smear every 6 months for the next 2 years to just like monitor what was going on. Great. And a quick primer for the boys in the audience who may be a little fuzzy. And I'll keep it brief, I swear. So a pap smear is, a doctor uses this thing called a speculum, which kind of looks like two metal shoehorns. And it's always really cold. And you lie back on this table and he inserts this into your, or the doctor inserts this into your vagina and sort of cranks it open. And uses this swab to like sample some cells. It's not painful, but it's not wonderful. You know? It's just kind of unpleasant. It's like an unpleasant way to spend part of an afternoon. So I'm in the clinic for one of these appointments, and the nurse shows me into the examination room and says, we have a med student with us today. You know, is it okay if he watches? And I'm like, sure, whatever, fine, it's no big deal. And she leaves, and the doctor comes in with this student, and he says, you know, actually, our student has actually watched a few of these. Is it okay if he just performs your examination? And I look at the student, and you know, the student does not look ready for this. He mostly looks really nervous and really green and like Doogie Howser young. You know, but like without Doogie Howser's like confidence and charm, you know, and he's sweating, which does not make me feel happy, like at all. But I'm not that great around nervous people. I guess no one really is, but you know, I have this sort of pathological need sometimes to like reassure people and like make them feel comfortable, and sometimes this is a really good thing, like. I throw a hell of a dinner party, like come to my house and there's like always like 3 to 4 times too much food. And your glass will never be empty, but you know, sometimes it's like a less ideal reaction to a situation. Like I was always really terrible at first dates because like even when things were going really poorly, like I really wanted these poor awkward boys to like feel like they were doing really well. And you know what? Sometimes they just weren't doing really well. So not always ideal. So, you know, I look at this student and I really feel for him. I have like empathy for him, and you know, he's here, you know, to learn this really important thing. Like on a certain level, this appointment is like no longer about me. This is about him. You know, he's got to learn this skill, this really important skill that he's going to, you know, be a real doctor someday, and like he needs my help. And you know, I want him to do well. Like, I want him to have the best experience of my vagina that's possible. Awesome. Anyway, so I say, yes, sure, he can do my pap, like, absolutely. And I try to be really positive and really encouraging. So he sits down and he, gets ready, and his first stab, which is an accurate, if unfortunate, turn of phrase here. So he sort of, yeah, I know. He inserts a speculum and he starts to crank it open, but like something has caught in a weird way. I'm sorry. Anyway, something is caught, and there's like some pinching of like the tenderest of tender skin. And so I like try to gently let him know this, and sort of softly say and then softly say ow, but he like is not listening to me at all. So then I sort of have to loudly say ow, and you know, he fixes everything and it stops. But this has made everything worse because now he's really embarrassed because he's screwed up, in front of the doctor and all the rest of it. And he's really apologetic and he's really mortified. And like, I feel really terrible because, he's, anyway, like it's impossible to reassure someone from the position that I'm in. All I can do really is sort of lie there and like think positive thoughts in his like general direction, which is like not working at all. So he sort of, starts again, all flustered, and like I can hear him breathing now, which like is not great. And anyway, he inserts the speculum and he cranks it open, and it's like fine. And I'm like, we've cleared the first hurdle, like good. And then he like turns to get the swab, and like I think that maybe he didn't insert it far enough. I don't know. Because what happens is the speculum goes shooting out of my vagina. And then it hits the wall. And then it hits the floor. And then there is the longest moment of silence. And like none of us can look each other in the face. And then after a very long pause, the doctor says, "I think I will take over now." And we all agreed that this would be best. So it was one of my last appointments at the clinic, and I have no idea what happened to this med student, but like part of me really wishes that, he occasionally tells this story, like I occasionally tell this story, like his own weird fish out of water story of like all the shit he fucked up when he was a med student, like sitting around having beers with other doctors and going, seriously guys, it hit the wall. And then it hit the floor. Thank you.